Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Almost Dropouts podcast. My name is Daivik, and today I have Kevin with me. Kevin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everybody. Daivik, thanks for having me on. My name's Kevin. I'm head of product at Perpetua, and I'm a Waterloo systems design engineering alum. But yeah, great to be here, Daivik.
Yeah, great to have you as well. And yeah, just for more context on Kevin, yeah, he was a Waterloo side grad where he did internships at firms such as Microsoft and Social Capital, and then he founded Six Club, which got acquired by Draper AI, which is Perpetua's Canadian R&D lab. And so currently, he's head of product at Perpetua, and Perpetua and Draper both got acquired in April 2021. So it's really exciting to have you on the podcast. Really interesting story, or a lot of stuff has happened. So it's really interesting to have you on. And yeah, let's get started. So let's talk about Perpetua AI. What is it, Kevin?
Yeah, for sure. So Perpetua, we're building growth infrastructure for e-commerce. There's been a huge burst in e-commerce, obviously with COVID and whatnot. Um, and with that burst in e-commerce, there's been not only a surge in demand, but also a surge in supply, right? So there's tons of merchants competing to win sales. So if you look at like a platform like Amazon, which is where we started, um, there's maybe 40 or 50 pages of results for any given search on Amazon. And as you can imagine, the lion's share of sales go to the first two or three or five results on a page. And so what has happened is a lot of e-commerce platforms have released advertising platforms that allow new players in the market to buy their way to the top of the page and thus capture some of the sales. So with e-commerce growth, all these retailers, all these CPG businesses, brands, they've all had to invest a lot in growth and e-commerce. And so advertising has been, a huge part of that story. And advertising historically has actually been really hard to manage. You usually kind of have a team of marketers, advertisers who are kind of, looking at data on spreadsheets, making strategies, running experiments, executing all these things. So the idea behind Perpetua is like, hey, what if we could build a software platform that empowers humans to go beyond, basic number crunching, basic kind of spreadsheet analysis of advertising data, and actually allow you, rather than creating campaigns, to create goals where you can say, hey, this is my budget. This is kind of the return I'm looking for. Computer, do all the research, analyze all the data, and grow my business, grow my sales. So yeah, Perpetua's building growth infrastructure for e-commerce. It's advertising optimization on Amazon, Walmart, Instacart, Target, kind of a whole bunch of retail marketplaces.
Right. Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and yeah, it makes sense. You guys are automating that whole process, which I know, especially right now. That's a lot of startups are aiming to do that. So, as part of that, what are the features that you're offering customers to grow their e-commerce platform?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a few kind of core elements. I'd say that the kind of bread and butter of it is our what we call our ad engine, and that's essentially a set of proprietary algorithms and data science models that analyze and ingest all the advertising data that customers connect to our platform, and uses it to then generate a set of campaigns, keywords, bids, budgets, etc. So there's kind of our Perpetua ad engine, which is kind of the bread and butter of our product. On top of that, we build a whole suite of obviously analytics and reporting tools so that our customers are able to analyze their ad performance, analyze their ad data. And beyond that, I would say it's a lot of building interfaces and workflows that enable marketers and advertisers again to focus on strategy. So inputting what's their objective, what are they trying to achieve with their campaign goals, supporting agencies and being able to structure campaigns to align with their business strategy and their customers' business objectives. So that's kind of the core of the product.
Right. So I guess I'm curious then, and I don't know how deep you can go into this, but in terms of automating, then how do you take that information? So somebody comes with this, we want to make this much money, and this is our ad campaign. So how do you guys end up like populating the e-commerce site or coming up with strategies to populate the e-commerce site with these different ad campaigns then?
Yeah, so there's kind of a few different elements to it. So I mean, the first thing is just analyzing their historic data, trying to understand if there are under leveraged opportunities. So, for example, there might be certain products that they are under investing in. They haven't been spending enough on ads, and so they're leaving money on the table. There might be certain keywords that they're leaving money on the table. In addition to that, we do a bunch of analysis on what their product is, and we try to identify, okay, are there keywords that they're missing? So what we do is we identify new keywords and we identify how to value those keywords. And if there's any difference between what they've been doing and what our system predicts, we implement that and hope for the best. And 8 to 9 times out of 10, we're able to improve their ad performance.
Right, right. And then, so I guess sort of a follow up to that is I know like SEO is a big deal in the search engine optimization market. And it seems like you're doing SEO to a degree for these guys on e-commerce platforms. So how do you guys get those insights into what different keywords would work in the different platforms? Is a lot of manual analysis, or is there an API? Like I'm not too sure. I have no idea how SEO works for that. So I was just wondering, yeah, any insight on that?
Yeah, totally. So SEO, means something specific to different people. So, in our case with advertising, so SEO, some people might think about it in terms of like organic ranking, right? So for a given turn, I want to make sure I'm ranking up organically. It's not necessarily related to ads. So for SEO, what we often do is we just really just look at click through rate, right? So for a given product, if it has a certain number of reviews and a certain star rating, if its click through rate is below a certain percentage or above a certain percentage, we're able to understand, okay, hey, this product is, for whatever reason, uh, is displaying as irrelevant to customers. And so then we try to understand, oh, is there something wrong with the product title or the, product image, or is it, are they targeting the wrong traffic, something like that. So for SEO purposes, it's a lot of just like look at click through rate, try to understand, are there, weird anomalies that where there's opportunity for improvement. Um, but in terms of, what are the signals that we use for, identifying keywords, I would say there's kind of a few. There's two kind of sources. So the first source is from Amazon or from Walmart or from Target, from one of these platforms. So most of these platforms have their own APIs that are able to say, hey, based on the data that we're seeing, we think these products might be relevant for these keywords. Um, that's kind of the first place that we're able to get a sense of what, at least how the platforms are interpreting the products. And I would say the second real kind of signal that we look for is we can kind of cluster products, right? So if someone comes to us with a iPhone case, we try to look at all the iPhone cases that we have access to and try to understand, are there keywords that are missing, or certain keywords that might be highly relevant. And that's kind of where we can source additional info from.
Right. Right. That makes sense. And then in terms of like target customers, have you guys seen a lot of like where have you seen a lot of success? Is it usually with smaller customers, bigger customers, or is this like a mix of both?
Yeah, so our first, we obviously kind of like Shopify, we have the whole spectrum. We have the independent hustler who's on the side, selling stuff from his basement, and we also have extremely large brands like Crocs. Um, what I would say is for the first few years of our business, we really saw success in the mid market. So that's kind of mid-sized brands that um, are doing a decent amount of volume. They're spending somewhere between 50,000 and maybe 100,000 a month on e-commerce ads. But as time has gone along, we're starting to see more and more success in actually the agency market. So there's a lot of ad agencies that are actually managing the advertising for brands. They're hired as kind of third-party consultants or agency partners, and so the agency market has become one of the fastest growing segments in our customer base, and is a segment that we're very focused on right now from a product perspective.
Hmm. And I think one of the biggest challenges with product that I've seen has been trying to scale the product so it works on different business sizes. So as you mentioned, like you're targeting these different markets. You still have customers who are smaller and some customers who are bigger, like Crocs. So I was just wondering, when it comes to making product decisions for your team and making sure they scale accordingly, has there been any challenges doing that, or?
Oh yeah, I mean, tons of challenges. I think the challenge is always figuring out what to say no to. I think
Yeah.
it's very easy to identify problems that customers have. It's not easy, but it's not hard to find good solutions. I think the hard thing is you only are able to build so many things in a given amount of time, and figuring out what to say no to and what to say yes to is really, I would say, the hard part.
Right.
For us, as we've grown, we've always been very customer obsessed. So even from the early days, anytime any customer facing staff talks to a customer, if they get any feedback in terms of, you know, pain points, requests, we've been very, very disciplined about collecting all of that information. So even now, all of our salespeople, all of our account managers, they all have like a little Chrome extension where anytime they get feedback from the customer, they jam it in the Chrome extension. And our
Right.
product team is able to analyze all that feedback centrally and associate different pieces of feedback with different features on our backlog. And so when we're able to look at our backlog, we're able to say, okay, these are the features that are most requested, that are most identified, that are brought up most by customers, and that helps us a lot. But I would say the challenge as we've grown is information overload, right? We're now at the
Mhm.
point where we have like 3,000 pieces of feedback, and we have hundreds of pieces of feedback flowing in every week, and it's kind of really hard to it's really hard to kind of really understand what's the most important thing when everything seems like it's important. So
Right.
part of also the challenge is knowing which fires to let burn. There's a bunch of fires, you can't put them all out. So you have to kind of be thoughtful about which fires you're going to let burn, and which ones you're going to put out.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think prioritization is so important there, where you have to understand what features are going to help the overall vision of the company that you decided on and which ones are going to help the customer. And you have to come up with a balance of both. Okay, which one are you going to address right now and which ones are you going to kick down the road?
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm. Okay, cool. And so I guess talking about another feature you guys have, which you mentioned a little bit earlier on, was some of the analytics that you showcase to your customers. So I was just wondering, when it comes to the analytics, one of the toughest parts is what do you actually showcase to the customer? Because sometimes you have a bunch of analytics behind a bunch of screens, but overall your dashboard should be a holistic view of analytics and the campaigns I've been running. So I was just wondering, when it comes to choosing which analytics to show your customer, what is sort of the thought process there?
Yeah. So one of the kind of principles we have is, we need to some degree be our own customer, or we need to
Mhm.
we need to use our own product. So sometimes when you're kind of building these B2B products, there are chances that a lot of our staff don't have their own Amazon business, or they don't sell on Amazon. So it's difficult to kind of maintain that level of customer empathy. So one of the things we're very laser focused on is just making sure that all of our staff use our product as much as possible.
Right.
They spend time putting themselves in the shoes of the customer, and I would say that's where we drive a lot of our insight and our feedback from. So for the first couple of years, I was pretty religious about managing a few accounts myself as like a customer success account manager, and just talking to the customer regularly, using our product. Trying to work with the customer to optimize their business. It really helped me understand, okay, shoot, these are the gaps in our reporting product. These are metrics that we need. These are metrics that we that are missing. And that kind of helped us a lot in the earlier days. Again, now that our team has scaled quite a bit, our customer base has scaled quite a bit, and the diversity and variation between our customer base has varied quite a bit. A lot of it today is just talking to our account managers and trying to see what are the types of data that they're pulling in into their slide decks when they're doing customer reviews, right? So if
Right.
they're pulling some custom Excel files and creating some custom reports
Right.
for their customer presentations, that's kind of often a really valuable signal to us to be like, oh shoot, we need to integrate this new set of analytics. Um, but as always, the core feedback loop is just customers requesting certain types of reports directly, and that funneling
Mhm.
all to us through our customer feedback portal.
Right. Right. Makes sense. Okay. Cool. Yeah, that's super interesting and a really interesting product. If you guys want to check it out, you can check out Perpetua AI. And yeah, I guess let's shifting a little bit right now. Let's talk about you personally. So originally you started six clubs, and so I wanted to get your insight about why did you decide to do a startup? What led you towards entrepreneurship?
Yeah, totally. So uh, when I was in 1A at Waterloo, I kind of quickly was exposed to a bunch of really cool entrepreneurs, the Velocity program, a lot of the cool Waterloo alumni. And I think, there's kind of a spark that lit within me where I was like, wow, I want to, I want to be like those guys. I want to build cool things. create a business, create something of my own. I was always kind of a builder hacker. Even as a kid, I would always kind of build my own little side projects. So uh, I got really close with one of my classmates who, still works with me today and was my co-founder with Six Club. But, every term from 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, etc., we were always, work, hacking out some product or the other. And we lived at the Velocity residence in 1B and, several terms after that. And we got to meet a lot of really cool and successful entrepreneurs as well. So yeah, I would say like a big part of it's just like community was maybe what sparked kind of lit the initial spark. From there, I would just say, my third co-op I did at Microsoft in Redmond, and I kind of worked at a big engineering company. Got exposed to building products at scale, and it was, this Microsoft's like a huge, huge company, and uh, my next term, which is my fourth co-op, I went the exact opposite direction, which is when I did kind of the fellowship with Social Capital, and I worked for one of their portfolio companies. That was like a tiny company, or not a tiny company. That was a really young company. So I joined them when they were like 10 months old. They were at about a million ARR at the time, and in the 4 months of my co-op, they scaled to 2 million. So they were growing really, really fast. Serial entrepreneur founders, and I just remember my social capital term when contrasted to my Microsoft term was just so much cooler. It was just a lot more fun. I don't know. There's just a different type of energy at a startup when you work with really smart people. So that was a really, really good experience, and it was actually the people at Social Capital who actually really encouraged me in kind of going down the route of entrepreneurship, where they were like, "Listen, dude, like start a company, we'll fund you, blah blah blah." So there's a lot of encouragement from them, and we were talking about the kind of Waterloo co-op program, and when I finished my term, I mean, the CEO was trying to recruit me to drop out of school and join their team full time. Yeah, I told him I couldn't do that, but he was like, "Dude, for your next co-op, don't come back here as an intern. Don't go somewhere else. Try to start your own company. We'll fund you, blah, blah, blah." So there's a lot of encouragement there. And then what happened was the following term at school, there was a program called Spectrum 28. It was kind of a very short-lived kind of entrepreneurship program at the university, but I got involved with that. And during that program, I think is really when like we were always again hacking on some idea or the other, but we were never kind of we didn't invest enough where we took the leap and worked on it full time or something like that. And it was during that program that the leaders of the program really encouraged us and said, "Hey, like you really don't have that much to lose if you go deeper, go harder, grind more and do an e-co-op." And so that's when we said, "Okay, you know what? Screw it. Let's, you know, uh, not quit our our co-op jobs, but not take our offers for co-op, and let's do something full time." And yeah, then we just kind of jumped into it for e-co-op, and that was like a huge, huge learning experience. I have absolutely no regret. I strongly encourage everyone at Waterloo to do every entrepreneurial student at Waterloo to do an e-co-op. But that was, yeah, really, really good learning experience. Um, and yeah, it was a really good experience. So why did I decide to do it? I don't know. I just kind of fell in love with startups. Always was always hacking on things, and at some point, I kind of reached a critical mass of motivation to take the plunge, and it's only been upward from there.
Right. Makes sense. Yeah, I think one of the best, like I can talk about myself. I think one of the best things about the Waterloo Co-op program has just been able to I've been able to figure out what I like and what I don't like pretty early on. Like a lot of other people figure that out later on in their career because they graduate and have to go find a role out of university, and then they figure that out. But with Waterloo, since we're doing all these co-ops earlier on, I think a lot of our students get to figure that out pretty quickly. So it's really great to hear that you figured that out. You had that internship, and you figured out that you want a smaller type of role or a
Yeah,
smaller company.
yeah,
So
I would
good.
just kind of go off on that note just to say, one thing I really want to get the message out to more Waterloo co-ops is, I think there's way too much hype about working at, big tech companies, landing the Microsoft, landing the whatever, Google, Facebook, Tesla, whatever, Apple, whatever it is. There's so much hype, and that's kind of a lot of what students are focused on. But, working for top tier startups is, yeah, just something that I think more people should take the leap to do. And even graduating, a lot of people are going to get a lot of the top students are going to get top offers from big tech companies, and it's going to be a nice salary and whatnot. But if you can join like an actually good startup early on and get a meaningful amount of equity, that's really, I would say, from a financial perspective in our industry, it's really kind of equity that is where you can make really huge returns. And so even though it's like a little bit more risk, like sure, instead of making whatever 150,000, you make 100,000 because you go to a startup, or 80,000 or 90,000 or 75, whatever it is. If you can go to startup, get paid $75,000, but get like 0.5% in equity, at Series A, Series B level, or seed level, that's very, very lucrative. So that's one thing I definitely think Waterloo students don't realize enough. There's
Right.
just way too much hype around big companies, but startups are definitely way more lucrative if you choose the right ones.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. It's funny because I'm sort of contending with that right now as well, because I'm also graduating in April. So I'm
Yeah,
going through that own struggle as well, like where do I want to go, and sort of contending between all those different offers. So
yeah. The criteria that I looked at, that I would recommend is like you want to join. The ideal setup is where you join a startup that has like a successful founder. Because successful founders have built a business before. They've kind of been from 0 to 1. They have a network. They have credibility. Um, yeah, if you're able to join a company that has a serial entrepreneur founder or a successful founder, I would say that the risk profile is very different. Now, that doesn't mean that all second-time founders are going to succeed. Obviously, there's still risk, but that's one important signal to look for. Is like, yeah, repeat successful entrepreneur, and then obviously, the traditional things around, you know, do they have, good investors, top tier investors, a decent amount of funding, what's their revenue traction, et cetera, et cetera. There's all those things that you want to look at. But um, yeah, I mean, joining a top tier startup with a good founder early on is like way more lucrative than joining a big company.
right. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I'll probably keep that in mind when I'm looking as well.
And
Uh,
it also like gives you an opportunity for a lot faster career growth. Like for me, my other offers when I was graduating was, well, actually, fun story, but I actually started working full time for Perpetua in 4A. But uh, but what I was going to say was, my other offers were all like APM offers at big companies. And I would just say, like, the career growth and your level of impact is also like way smaller, I would say, at those types of companies. Whereas for me, I technically joined Perpetua as an APM, but it was so early on that I was able to really come in and make a huge impact. I came in, I started doing sales, customer success, got a bunch of our first customers. Learned a ton of their insights. Helped really shape our roadmap towards something that helped us achieve product market fit. And based on that success, I was able to, I was basically promoted very quickly within the company and whatnot. So I would just say, like, joining a startup, it's not just lucrative, but it also just gives you a lot more opportunity to make an impact and a lot more opportunity to grow, and learn faster.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. That's the hardest thing to contend with, right? About you gotta really evaluate what you're looking for, what your risk profile is, and what's the best opportunity that sort of gives you the different factors you're looking for. So definitely, like it's a challenge, but I think a lot of people aren't taking the startup road seriously as much as they should. So it's great to hear you sort of advocating for that, because I think that's a perspective less heard, especially at Waterloo.
Yeah. I think it's also like if you're actually a builder, you're meaning you're someone who actually loves building things, or loves shipping things, loves creating, inventing things. I would say, lean more into just trying to find something cool to build. Don't focus on um, the resume checkbox, brand sticker, logo, title hacking. Just try to be like, what would be really cool to build? Like, oh man, I'm super into crypto and NFTs. Like, find a company and work and build on NFTs. If you actually find some interest in it, it goes a long way. Or, oh, maybe you're really into design. Go work for Figma. I mean, Figma's still almost a big company, but try to just find products that you'd actually enjoy building. I think that people spend so little time thinking about that, and so much time thinking about, oh man, how do I get my salary from 100,000 to 110,000? Where it's like, dude, that 10,000 is not, it's not going to make a difference in the long run. And if you do well, you'll get a raise pretty quickly. Um, Yeah, just focus on trying to have fun. That's actually my philosophy is like, try to have as much fun as you can. If you're a smart person who likes building stuff and you focus on trying to have fun, I would say you'll probably do a better job, and you'll probably make a bigger impact, make more of an impression, and people will be excited to be around you. They'll kind of feel that energy. So yeah, I would say people just should focus for having fun, and I think the money will follow.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough environment right now to choose between that, but it makes sense. Like I think too many people do not like focus so much on the salary and the external factors that they don't think what internally what do they want to do and what do they think is actually worthwhile doing. And I
Mhm.
think for me that's also like a really important aspect to any of the roles I do. What am I actually working on? What is a product?
Mhm.
So um, but makes sense. Okay, so I guess dialing back to you doing your startup. So you know you wanted to do a startup, so you started. You founded this company. You went through the eCoOp program. Um, but starting off, like, how did you go about developing business and VC relationships? 'Cause I know it's definitely pretty Like, it's definitely pretty intimidating. It seems like from the outside to do that. And I know you mentioned you have social capital internships, so that probably helped out. But still,
Yeah, like I mean, we didn't really put any time or energy into like trying to develop VC relationships. Like we spent most of our time just trying to focus on getting customers. I think that's an interesting story that I'm happy to share. But um, I would just say in terms of investors and stuff like that, really it was just our network of people that we'd been exposed to before. So primarily our previous managers. So, it wasn't even the social capital people that were my biggest advocate as much as it was the social capital founders that I worked for, who then, introduced me to tons of people, tons of contacts. Obviously, if you go to Waterloo, there's a huge YC network, um, through Velocity that, if you're applying to Y Combinator, you can get a ton of referrals pretty easily and pretty quickly. Um, but yeah, I would just say lean into the Waterloo Velocity YC network, and then your own network of previous managers, previous colleagues, etc., to see where that leads you. Um, yeah, I would just say like trying to cold email VCs or trying to go to events. That's all kind of a huge waste of time, especially if you don't have customers.
right. So then talking about customers, then how do you go about retaining those customers that you mentioned or getting those customers? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, so our story with Six Club was kind of fun where, at the time, so I didn't really talk much about what Six Club was, but basically, that was around the time when, Facebook first opened its messenger platform to API bots where you could create, chat bots and stuff. And
Right.
so one of the ideas that we had was like, hey, a lot of guys hate shopping for men's apparel. They hate shopping for clothes, but they want to look good. So what we thought is, what if we create like a stylist chatbot experience where you can kind of go to a chatbot, input some information about what types of clothes you like, look at some inspo images, et cetera, and then we'll recommend you e-commerce products or men's
Right.
apparel products. So that was kind of our initial idea, and the MVP was just a Facebook page. Like we didn't even write a bot. We just kind of put up a Facebook page, and we had us typing stuff in the background. And
Okay.
we went to the male fashion advice subreddit,
Right.
and we kind of just started DMing people who were posting there and being like, "Hey, like, I just found this really cool service. It helped me a lot. I saw your post. You should try it out. It might help you." And
Right.
we did that. So yeah, we put up our Facebook page one evening, posted on Reddit the same subreddit the same evening, and basically the next day we had our first customer, our first paying customer. So it was pretty epic. It was a good time.
Wow, that's so, that's hilarious because I actually go on r/male fashion advice sometimes. So it's really funny to hear how you just DM those guys and that's how you did a customer acquisition. That's really unique.
Yeah, it
Um,
was a good time.
for sure. And then I guess talking about the e-commerce space in general, like what really excites you about it?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say there's a ton of growth, which is really, really exciting. And one of the cool things is, there's a lot of innovation and a lot of new products, and there's a lot of opportunity for merchants on the merchant side to use, for example, at least what I see every day is use advertising to grow their businesses. And so for the consumer, there's a lot of really, really cool products that are coming out there. One of our customers is a customer called Supercubes, and
Mhm.
basically what they do is they make these silicone ice cube trays that are kind of like I think it's like 1 cup or 1 gallon, not 1 gallon, it's 1 cup in size. So a lot of people who wanted to freeze soup broth and stuff, they were historically using Ziploc bags, and it was kind of a huge pain in the ass. So they built this like
Right.
um, silicone 1 cup ice cube tray. It sounds like kind of a simple, silly idea, but we watched that customer grow from zero to very, very large, successful business on our platform. But yeah, it's
Nice.
just been really cool to see how many new products are able to get out there so much more quickly. And as a consumer, I'm kind of addicted to buying just random cool shit on Amazon
Right.
online. So
Mhm.
yeah, I'd say that's kind of what I'm most excited about.
Right, makes sense. Yeah, I think it's really interesting to see how many new products have come out for such targeted use cases.
Mhm.
Because before those products, it really really hard for them to find a market. But now with e-commerce, it's pretty easy, especially in comparison to what it used to be. So it's really interesting to see those businesses thrive like that.
Yeah, totally. And
Yeah.
also, like, with COVID and stuff, a lot of the traditional retailers have been really stepping up their e-commerce game.
Mhm.
So, like, even for me, like, I'm doing a whole bunch of renovations at my house, and, like, Home Depot is actually a good e-commerce website and a good e-commerce, experience, and, those are all changes that have started or accelerated because of COVID, and, I'm excited to see the continued growth such that, every retailer eventually becomes, you know, as customer friendly or, close to as customer friendly as, Amazon is, for example.
For sure. Yeah, that makes sense. I think I can talk about myself too. Just consumer behavior in general, I think is definitely moving much more towards being more comfortable with e-commerce. So for myself, for example, I used to never really like buying clothes online, but this last month I bought almost all my clothes online. I did a whole wardrobe change,
Nice.
and that's something I would have never imagined of doing fully online before. But now it's just becoming common. So it makes sense. A lot of e-commerce giants or new players are just making sure that the customers have a great experience because a lot of people are now moving towards full e-commerce.
Mhm. Totally.
Um, but cool, yeah. Just to wrap things up, I guess last couple questions I have is so given your experience in startups, what do you think the three biggest aspects to grow a business in 2022 are?
Yeah, it's a good question. Um, I think, there's kind of 3 things that come to mind, and they're not necessarily unique to 2022. They were always
Right.
true, but they're becoming increasingly more true. So the first thing I would just say is, like, customer obsession. That's kind of an
Mhm.
Amazon value that we've adopted a lot at Perpetual, and we talk about all the time. But if you're a Waterloo student graduating, going to startup, or if you're a big company like Microsoft, doesn't matter where you are, but like customer expectations are changing, evolving, growing so quickly. The world is evolving so quickly, and it's really important that um, businesses, employees, engineers, product managers, designers, that everyone's like customer obsessed, right? Everyone's so in touch with their customer, understanding, putting themselves in their shoes, understanding how their workflows, how their lives, how their interests are changing, and kind of adapting their own whatever products, offerings, business models towards that. So customer obsession is kind of has always been important, but is increasingly more important. I think the second thing is like obviously development velocity. You kind of and again, this is not a new thing, but startups, their kind of primary advantage is how fast they can move
Right.
versus the large companies like Microsoft, Google, etc. And also, to all the Waterloo students who are hyped up about the big companies, if you read a lot of the stories of I think it's the Waze founder who wrote kind of a breakdown on Google post acquisition, but like big companies move quite slow, and a lot of it's just like liability and working with legal and all these types of things. But anyways, the point is moving fast is really, really important. So trying to figure out ways to improve your development velocity, whether it's you yourself learning new skills, your team kind of building architecture that empowers you to build things more simply, more scalably, and more quickly. Development velocity and being able to move fast is really, really important. Um, and maybe a weird SaaS one that I think is really, really important is just like net dollar retention. One of the things I think that's been the biggest learning of mine growing Perpetua as a SaaS business from zero to at this point we're managing almost in ad spend, but
Wow.
uh, our net dollar retention has really been the key to driving long-term growth, right? So if you acquire a customer cohort today, and they're generating $1 of revenue per year for you, ideally what you want is that next year they're gonna spend more, and they're gonna generate, $1.10 in revenue, or $1.25, or $1.50, or even $2 in revenue. So I
Right.
think every startup needs to just focus on not only retaining clients so that a dollar doesn't become 80 cents next year, but actually figuring out how to make them grow. So I think net dollar retention is just super, super important. If you look at the public markets and you look at a lot of the SaaS companies uh, that are out there, the ones that are really successful, that are growing like, 40%, 70%, 150% year on year at, $100 million ARR, or $1 billion ARR. The kind of one common theme you see is net dollar retention, positive net
Right.
dollar retention. So I think that's really important as well for growth.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. It's pretty valuable insights. And I guess, yeah, just to wrap up, what is the next steps for you and Perpetua AI?
Yeah, I think for us, we're growing our team. So definitely, Waterloo grads or new grads that are listening to this, if you're looking, especially if you're in engineering, but really across the board, we're just hiring and growing. So last year, our team grew from, I don't know what it was like 38 to over 100. This year, we're planning on growing our team from 100 to 200. So a lot of it's just like growth, hiring, and with that, and that's all to fuel obviously customer and revenue growth. But yeah, with that, I would say for me, it's just, my product team has grown dramatically in size. We just had 3 new product managers join this month, and a lot of what's next for me is just helping them succeed. Helping them do their best work, live their best lives, have fun, and make a big impact. So yeah, that's what's next for us.
Perfect. Yeah, and I'll leave the career website in the show notes and on the post, so you guys can have access to that. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Kevin. It was really, really insightful, and I thought it was a really great conversation. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Daivik. Thanks for having me.